Hey, what's going on, everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with a very, very special episode. So today, we're going to be talking about my Gruul Dinosaurs top 8 list from SCG Columbus, the RCQ that just happened over the weekend. So for those who it's their first time watching this video, obviously we're going to go over the deck. We're going to kind of talk about the tournament as a whole and things I would maybe change at the end. As always, the deck list is in the description below if you'd like to check it out for yourself. And we are also, as of the recording of this video, almost to 300 subscribers. So if you are not subscribed now, feel free to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and then obviously you can pay attention to the giveaways that's going to be happening. We do it every 100 subscribers, and we are almost to 300. So just wanted to throw that in there before we hop into the video. So, all right. So we're going to be starting with the overall list itself, and then we're going to go ahead and hop into kind of like the overview of the tournament, the dinosaurs, obviously why I played those specific dinosaurs, and then obviously we'll talk about the event recap and everything, things I would potentially change in the list overall. So, all right. So obviously on your screen here, you can go ahead and see the entire list here. This is the main board of the entire deck. If you want to go ahead and read through the entire thing, obviously go ahead and pause it. On the next couple screens, I'm going to talk about some of the dinosaurs specifically. So if you don't know what the dinosaur does, we are going to go ahead and look at those, but we don't need to talk about like Stomping Ground and Land of Elves. We kind of know essentially what those are. So, and then specifics of the deck, I'm going to go ahead and talk about in a future section of the video. And then obviously if you want to go ahead and check out the sideboard is right here as well for you to look at. So, all right, that's the entire deck. If you want a more in-depth analysis on this deck, I will leave a link for a video in the description below. I talked about a list very, very similar to this at one point. It's not quite the same list, but essentially the reasons are very similar why we did play it. I'll leave the link in that in the description if you'd like to check that out for yourself. So, all right. So we're going to hop into the first part here. We're going to talk about the dinosaurs that we decided to play in the list. I'm going to go ahead and just give an in-depth analysis on why we played them. All right. So the first card, Marauding Raptor, very unique card in Magic for multiple reasons. So, first thing I want to go over with Marauding Raptor, it is the best card in the entire deck, hands down. I know a lot of people, have different, opinions on what the best dinosaur is. That is, especially in this deck, it's Marauding Raptor. Marauding Raptor is the single best card. The games that you have Marauding Raptor and the games you don't are significantly different. So Marauding Raptor is very unique. Obviously, 2/3 for 2. That's a very, very good stat line. Creature spells cost 1 less to cast, so it's essentially a mana dork that just likes to attack. And then on top of that, whenever we play a dinosaur, we deal 2 damage to the dinosaur, and Marauding Raptor gets +2/+0, which means it grows, it synergizes with our other dinosaurs, obviously making them cost 1 less to be able to get them out on the battlefield easier is huge. Marauding Raptor is an absolutely insane Magic card. For those who are playing this dinosaur deck, the part of the reason that we're playing the Commune with Dinosaurs is because we want to hit the Marauding Raptor on turn 2 almost every single time. I don't want to, you shouldn't mulligan to it per se, especially when we're playing elves and communes. But if you get your hand and it's like a couple lands of Marauding Raptor and like a 4-drop, like that's an auto keep pretty much. Marauding Raptor is the single best card in the entire deck. Then our 4-drops here, we have Ripjaw Raptor and Rampaging Raptor. The best 4-drops, in my opinion, to play. A lot of people like to play Shifting Ceratops, which is a very, very powerful card. I just decided to not play it in the list because 2 reasons. One, Ripjaw Raptor combos extremely well with Marauding Raptor, obviously because Ripjaw Raptor has Enrage whenever it's dealt damage, draw a card, so we go turn 2 Raptor, turn 3 Ripjaw Raptor, trigger draw a card, which is absolutely fantastic. It's also a 4/5, great stats, and it's really, really good against other aggro decks, which is just fantastic. And we're also playing Reckless Rage in our deck, which combos extremely well with Ripjaw Raptor. We get to draw cards when we kill their creature, and as well as, Reckless Rage doesn't kill any of our creatures because all of our creatures have more than 3 toughness. At least our dinosaurs do, which is fantastic. And then I'm also playing the Rampaging Raptor, mostly because Rampaging Raptor is a lot more aggressive than Shifting Ceratops, at least at a lower curve. Like, yes, we can give it haste for a green, but Rampaging Raptor just always has haste. It's always got trample, and then obviously all late game, if we need a mana sink, we've got a couple different options for mana sinks, but we can go ahead and dump mana into the Rampaging Raptor to go ahead and buff it. And having the Questing Beast text can be very, very relevant as well. So, Rampaging Raptor, great addition from March of the Machines overall. Turns out a red Questing Beast is very, very good. So, finishing off our dinos here, we're playing 4 Register Alphas. I guess I didn't talk about the other numbers, but obviously they're in the deck list, but we were playing 4 of all the other ones. Also playing 4 Register Alpha, which is what I consider to be the second best dinosaur in the deck. Obviously getting 7 power for 5 mana with 3 of it being haste and trample is absolutely fantastic. Register Alpha on turn 3, if our opponent can't destroy the Register Alpha, the odds are that they're just going to die. It's an absolutely insane magic card. Leads to some really, really insanely fast hands, especially with Marauding Raptor, just because we get 2 dinosaurs, which trigger it twice, which gives it +4/+0. So we have the potential on turn 3 to be attacking for 9, and then untap, and then play Register Alpha's best friend here, Ghalta Primal Hunger. So we're only playing 2 copies of Ghalta, just because obviously you don't want 4 copies of it. I've changed the number of Ghaltas in this deck a lot over the years. It's gone from 3 to 2 to 1 to 2 to 3 to, whatever. But we're currently at 2 copies, mostly because Ghalta is really, really good against all the other aggro decks, and it's really good against mono green Devotion. Because, for instance, if they block with 2 Cavaliers, we take them both out, and on top of that, Ghalta still survives just because obviously it's a 12/12. It's absolutely gigantic. And with Register Alpha, it gets haste. It curves extremely well in a Register Alpha for sure. These 2 cards are very, very close, tight friends. Ghalta, absolutely awesome card. You don't want to play too many copies of it because in specific matchups it can get stuck in your hand, but nonetheless it is still a very incredible card. So those are the dinosaurs that we are playing in the entire 75. Again, there's a lot of other dinosaurs that have potential to be solid, especially in this deck, but at least these are the ones that I chose personally. So, alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about some of the matchups. That's something that people ask a lot about, like, oh, hey, what are the matchups? So kind of 2 things. One, again, I think it has very similar matchups as Gruul Boats. So if you know about Gruul Boats, you play Gruul Boats. Essentially, I think of this as more of like a more synergistic version of the deck, but essentially has very similar matchups. So the good matchups, I would say most aggro decks, that's including humans, I would say spirits, goblins, I would say is pretty good. I think mono red, like just mono red aggro, mono red burn, is slightly unfavorable, but not by much. That's what I would say for most aggro decks. Lotus Combo, I've always found to be a very good matchup. Lotus Combo struggles to be able to get ahead of us because they don't interact with our dinosaurs pretty much at all. So we're able to just snowball out of control with, turn 2 Marauding Raptor, turn 3 Rampaging Raptor, or a Register Alpha. That they just can't interact with us fast enough. So if we kill them on turn 4 or 5, there's just really nothing they can do. Boros Pia, I didn't want to include that in the aggro deck because it is an aggro deck, but it's like not an aggro deck. It's kind of its own thing. I found the matchup with Boros Pia to be very favorable. I feel like it's very hard for them to get ahead. Again, they don't play the best removal for our deck. They do play cards like Chain to the Rocks, but obviously post board we have plenty of options to be able to get rid of, the Shutdown of the Scalds, and then obviously the Chain to the Rocks. So I found it not to be the best matchup for them. For us, it's a fantastic matchup. And then I decided to throw Rakdos Sacrifice in there. I think the matchup it's pretty close, but I think it's slightly favorable for us. Again, we just play big dinos. If they can't kill our dinos, if they don't always have that fatal push, then they're going to struggle to be able to get off the ground against us. It's just a great matchup for us, in my opinion. And obviously, we're going to talk about the bad matchups. So, Mono Green Devotion. So, Mono Green Devotion is definitely not a great matchup for us, just because they play a lot of really big creatures that they want to trade with our creatures to get a lot of value from. Like Old Growth Troll, it ramps them, and then Cavalier Thorns, the Storm of the Festival, they always seem to mill. They just go ahead and put that back on top and keep that engine going. So that can definitely be a tricky matchup. Definitely for the sideboard, part of the reason I like Gruul Charm is obviously it's very good against like spirits and flying decks, but it's really good against mono green just because we can give our whole team unblockable and then there's nothing they can really do about it. So that's kind of why we have especially 2 Ghaltas and the 2 Gruul Charms for the mono green Devotion matchup. Rakdos Midrange. Rakdos Midrange is not a great matchup for us, largely in part to Shieldred. Shieldred is a card that is extremely good against this deck. a lot of our, lower end dinos get to 4 power quite consistently. So obviously the fact that it's a 4/5 is a really big issue for us. We do have a little bit of removal that we can use to kind of take it out, but it never ends up good for us. We always end up ultimately, Shieldred is kind of the downfall to this deck to a certain extent. If there's a lot of Shieldreds in your area, or if you just really want to, try and make that matchup better, I would highly consider putting some more roasts in the sideboard. I'm just playing 1 copy currently, but obviously consider playing more. And then Bogles. Oh my goodness. Bogles is probably the absolute worst matchup for this deck. Obviously, if you wanted to patch up the sideboard a little bit to make it better, obviously play Back to Nature, which is a fantastic card just in general to be playing. But yeah, Bogles is a nightmare matchup for this deck. If your opponent goes turn 1, Glade Cover Scout, it's not going to end up well for us at all. So those are kind of the matchups that I wanted to talk about. As a whole, this is kind of my opinion on this. I think it could differ a little bit. You could certainly make arguments. You could play specific cards to definitely help those matchups, but at least the current build that we have now, this is what I would say. If there's a deck on there like, oh, hey, this deck's really common, why didn't you include that? Is because I think it's a little too close to really be able to tell. It's about a 50-50 matchup, I would say, 60-40, 40-60, that kind of thing. So those the matchups. Well, all right, so now we're going to hop into the meat of this episode. So the deck backstory and the event recap. All right, so for those who haven't been watching this channel for a long time, or if this is their first video watching it, I've been playing this dinosaur deck for absolute years. So ever since Pioneer came out in, 2019, yep, I have been optimizing a dragon deck, but a dinosaur deck for a very, very long time. I've played a ton of different renditions of this deck. I've played tons of different cards, combination of cards, changing the numbers, trying to find the sweet spot for this deck. Again, been playing it for years and years and years. So, at least for now, kind of going into the event recap a little bit, obviously going to SCG Con, I wanted to play in the Pioneer RCQ. And, I have a lot of different decks to play. I even have Mono Green Devotion. I have the entire deck. But Dinosaurs has always been my pet deck. On and off. Well, not even on and off. It's always been my pet deck. And I decided, you know what? I want to go ahead and play Dinosaurs. I think this would be really fun. For those who don't watch the channel a lot, we post paper magic content. And I've been playing this a lot on camera the last few weeks. And it's been doing very, very well. I've been able to do pretty good in, our metagame that from, currently where I play. So I decided to play the deck. So, the event recap. So the RECQ this one is different. So it's an RECQ technically, which essentially, I don't know what the E technically stands for, but all I do know is it's a single elimination tournament. So if you lose once, you are out of the tournament. You're done. You're donezo. So, there's no more, X1 crawling back to top 8s. Like, if you lose, you are done. So, I didn't know that technically initially going in, but I knew that, I'm like, we're still going to do this. Technically I might even have a pretty good shot just because our opponent doesn't really know what we're doing and, we might be able to get ahead. So ended up making it to the top 8 of the event. At least specific matchups, I'm not going to go too into detail on that, but essentially the bracket was very favorable for us. So in the first round, we played against the Green White Angel Company, which is a terrible matchup for us. I have that deck personally, and it is not a good matchup for us. The long story short is we were just able to get ahead with Galta. Galta was huge for us. Reckless Rage being able to take out all their, 2/4 flyers was gigantic for us, and we were able to squeak out the win. The second round, funny enough, we had the bye, which was hilarious. So if that's a free win, we take those when we get them for sure. And then the third round, we played against Boros Pia. The first game, we had a mulligan to 5, but we lost to a top deck Play with Fire, so that was pretty funny. And then games 2 and 3, we were able to grind them out. Clothis was huge in the second game, and then the third game, it was Marauding Raptor. It was the Marauding Raptor show, essentially. We got so much value with Marauding Raptor. We drew a ton of extra cards. It was really, really big, so they had to just, feed it Monastery Swift Spears just to be able to stay alive, so that was very, very huge for us. And then in the top 8, we ended up losing to Mono White Humans, which I would say is a favorable matchup for us. Essentially, game 1, we had turn 3 Register Alpha and then just started slamming Rampaging Raptors, and we got there. Game 2 was very, very close. We just couldn't quite get there. We kind of ran out of gas a little bit. And then game 3, our opener hand was very, very powerful. And then, unfortunately, out of all the draws I had, only one was a non-land, and it was a Llanowar Elves. So, kind of an unfortunate end to the tournament a little bit. It was a slightly favorable matchup for us. Our opponent ended up winning the entire event, so shout out to him. Congrats. Obviously that's awesome. You're going to Denver, which is sweet. But anyways, so the dinosaur deck, it played very, very well. I understand. It's like, oh well, technically you played three, you won 3 rounds technically, but at the end of the day, it's a single elimination. It's a top 8 and everything like that. So, we take those when we get them. The matchup, well, the metagame overall there was very favorable for us. There was a ton of spirits. There was a ton of humans. There was a lot of really low to the ground aggro decks, which again is what we want to play against. We want to play against the humans, the spirits. That's exactly what we want to play against, which is great. There was a decent amount of mono green devotion, but a lot of them lost in the first round, which was very uncommon to say the least. So there ended up being a couple in the top 8 as a whole, but we didn't have to worry about those, which was great for us overall. So, which the matchup is not, it's not a nightmare matchup, but it's definitely not very good for us. So that's the entire event recap overall. I think I pretty much included everything that was at least interesting to talk about, but yes, so at least 4 things I would potentially change. I like the main board as a whole. So I know it's weird that we're playing 6 elves and not just like 8 elves, but again, I've been tuning this list for a very long time, and that's kind of the good number that I've come up with. Obviously, we don't want too many of them, just because we have Marauding Raptor, which loves to eat those elves once we play them after. But as a whole, I really like the main board. The sideboard is essentially, you pick your battles, like cards that are very notable that I'm not playing are like Rampaging Ferocidon is very big, Shifting Ceratops is big, Return to Nature definitely could make the argument for additional copies of Roast. It's kind of one of those things where you just have to pick your battle. You got to pick your battle, and whatever you want to try to beat on that specific day, that's what you got to do. So that's essentially the entire recap, which I think I included everything that I wanted to include. But overall, that is the entire video. This wasn't technically a deck tech video, which I do a lot of those on this channel, obviously. But, it was just something I wanted to, mention. It was really cool. I made top 8 with dinosaurs, which was fantastic. If you'd like to check the deck out for yourself, I've been playing this for a very, very long time. I'm not trying to convince anybody that it's top tier, but if you're looking for just a cool, spicy deck to play, this is definitely the deck for you. Including the entire mana base and everything, this deck's like $160. It's super cheap to pick up. If you already have all the Gruul lands and everything like that, then this deck will cost you like probably $50. So I would highly recommend picking this up. It's very, very cool. And of course, there's going to be some new additions coming up very, very soon with Lost Caverns of Ixalan. So, definitely consider picking the deck up for that. So that's everything I've got for you. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the list? What would you change? Just let me know below there. And as always, if you want to check out some other videos on the channel, right now on screen, I will leave up the most recent paper video of me playing against blue-white spirits in Paper Magic. It was a very, very fun match, so I would highly suggest checking that out for yourself. I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.